This tutorial will help you navigate the NEDE Control Center to run a naturalistic neuroscience experiment. The NEDE Control Center is the GUI presented to the experimenter at the start of every session. It can be used to define the settings for an experiment, run the experiment and collect data, and replay the experiment later during analysis. Once you've downloaded NEDE, start the exe file and click Play to bring up the Control Center. The Control Center consists of three sections: the top line tabs, the main panel settings, and the bottom line action buttons. Use the top line tabs to specify whether you'd like to run a normal experiment, traverse a subject-specific set of waypoints, or replay a previous session. Clicking each tab will reveal a different group of settings in the main panel. For this tutorial, we'll focus on just the normal experiment tab. After you've selected a tab, you can specify the settings for your experiment using the controls in the main panel. We'll go through these controls in more detail in a minute. The bottom line action buttons will navigate you away from the control center to either start an experimental session, prepare the subject for the experiment, or end the experiment. Let's go over the settings available to researchers in the current release of NEDE. Other tutorials will discuss how you can add new functionality to NEDE. The category panel can be used to specify which stimulus categories to present to your subjects as the targets of a search, which as non-targets or distractors, and which are unused. You can also specify the prevalence of each category, type 2 to make this category twice as prevalent as the others. NEDE will automatically turn this into a proportion and specify what fraction of the objects will be targets. An object prevalence of 1 means every location contains an object. If you wanted, for example, only half of the positions to contain objects and the rest to be empty, you could set the object prevalence to be 0.5. The environment panel can be used to specify the level the stimuli are placed in, the presence and properties of a secondary task, the size of the stimuli, and whether or not you'd like a square to flash in one corner of the screen so you can use a photodiode to confirm display timing. The behavior panel can be used to specify the response type, whether the subject should press a button when they see targets, the navigation type, whether they navigate using a joystick or are navigated passively, and the duration of the experiment. The eye link panel allows experimenters to make manual adjustments to combat eye position miscalibration. We usually recommend that you leave these at an offset of 0 and scale of 1 to use eye link calibration as is. Finally, the experiment panel can be used to load the task prompts from a text file, specify the subject and session numbers for this run, and, very important, whether or not to record the data. If these are settings you'd like to use again, this panel also allows you to name and save the experiment. Then if you make any temporary changes to the experimental parameters, you can always reload the experiment and they'll go back to the way they were before. Once the main panel settings are the way you want them, you're ready to run the session. Once you're ready, click Start Session to load the prompts, or Start Session Now to skip the prompts and start the session immediately. To abort a session, click the circle in the upper left corner. During testing, you can use this panel to continue a session in slow or fast motion, or pause the session altogether. Clicking Exit Level aborts the session and returns to the control center. When the session is done, the data will be saved in the project directory, and the session number increments automatically so that the next run won't overwrite the current one. That's it for this tutorial. For more information, visit the NEDE website.